Hello and welcome to Hexed Encountered. My name is Joe. Today we're going to be taking a look at the game The Plum Island Horror. This is from GMT Games and is designed by Hermann Luttmann. And yeah, it's not technically, I suppose, a war game, but there's definitely conflict in it. So this is something that I was really looking forward to getting, and I'm glad to have it in hand. And I have not even broken the shrink wrap off of it yet, so we will be doing that momentarily. And what I'm thinking about doing for this one is actually doing the first look as well as maybe the setup of the game. And then when I do the playthrough, we'll just use that already set up game and go on from there to kind of give you a more complete picture of everything the game has to offer. This will be the solitaire playthrough, only because I'm doing this by myself. I don't have somebody to play with, but this is a cooperative game. So if we flip her over to the back here, we can see that it's got kind of the comic booky type layout and approach, which I think is pretty cool. But you can see right here it says players 1 to 4, so you can have up to 4 players, 14 and up. Playing time 45 minutes per player, so it's not a game that's going to be overly long. Although I guess if you play with 4 people, that's 3 hours of gameplay time. So the Plum Island Horror is a 1 to 4 player game featuring tactical level unit management and tower defense style survival through cooperative play. 3 unique decks of cards, Event, Search, and Fate, drive gameplay, and variable turn order keeps players on their toes as they attempt to save Plum Island. Each player will control one of 6 unique factions, which represent the various groups that populate Plum Island. Each of these factions has its own strengths and weaknesses, which encourages players to optimize for the group's strengths and marginalize its weaknesses in a new way each game. Saving Plum Island will require careful coordination and strategic synergy, which, when executed with precision, might just be enough to evacuate a city under siege and contain the horrific outbreak that threatens to spread beyond the island itself. If the players can succeed, they will win together, and the world will most likely be none the wiser to the averted crisis. If not, they will lose together and share the blame equally for failing mankind. All right, let's open up the box and see what's inside. All right, let's open it up. Well, the first thing we find is the rule book. Not an overly long rule book. It packs 30 pages, 31 with the index. You've got the various modes here. The 1-player mode, which is what I will be playing, which is basically the 2-player mode and control both factions. If you're experienced at the game, you can also play 3-player mode or standard full 4-player mode and control each faction. So you have options, basically, of how many factions you want to control. And you have, of course, the 2-player and the 3-player mode. The base rules, I am guessing, are designed for the 4-player mode. That would make sense. So we have an introduction here, which is the story of the background of the game. Then we have a game overview, list of the components. So we're going to have a mounted game board, the rule book, reference guide, playing cards, faction mats, the NPC/horror mutations faction mats, 5 player aids, sideboard, cloth bags, custom combat dice, murder of horrors tiles, cardboard standees, wooden cubes, and cardboard markers. And you get some things here. Again, the layout, the art style is very nice on this, the art direction, which I believe was done by Ken Kuhn, if I remember correctly, from the back of the box. I'm sure it's in here somewhere. Well, I think it was Ken Kuhn. Anyway, really like it. Really well done. This would be a faction mat, so you have the various characters that make up the factions. I looked at some of this stuff online. This is the first time I'm actually opening the box and looking at the components, the physical components. But I did read through the rule book online before this, so I would have a little bit of an idea about the game before we get into our first look. So you can see you've got some custom dice. Here are various markers, your murder of horrors, mutation standees, cubes, and so on and so forth, right? This would be another faction here. This would be the Neighborhood Watch. So here are the various factions: Greenport Township, Neighborhood Watch, Plum Island Constabulary, Plum Island Research Lab, Security Services, the Pearls, National Guard, and Islanders Athletic Club. And this is the setup, and we will go through this. That's going to be the second part of the video, is setting all this up. Here's our setup example. Here's a look at the board. And then we've got the gameplay, which actually begins on page 14. So the first 13 pages are introductory material and basically the setup procedure. And then you get into the various rules, your sequence of play, the hunger phase, activity phase, etc. And we will go through all this when we do our gameplay, but as you can see, we have everything laid out here in kind of the typical sequential fashion. Hermann Luttmann typically writes pretty solid rule books, so I'm sure this is all, like I said, I did read through it. This is all very, very well laid out, and everything is described pretty well. Your movement details, how combat works, biohazard infection, ranged combat. So there are combat in this. When I said it's not really a war game, like I said, it's a conflict game. Sort of like a war game. It's more, I guess I felt like it wasn't a war game mostly because of the setting being, kind of a sci-fi setting, but it is cool. Here's how victory and defeat work, and then again, we're at the back with the game modes and the rulebook index. And on the back, some tables here for close combat, ranged combat, repairs, etc., etc. Here's our reference guide. This one is 35 pages with the glossary. So if we start at the beginning, this has an overview of the map, components and cards, special units, example of play. That covers about 10 pages. So if we go to page 10 here, you've got your example of play, and it'll walk you through everything. So this is nice. I always like examples of play because you can play through them and get a sense of how the game plays beforehand. So here are our faction mats. We've got Greenport Township with the mayor, Andrew Mayberry, Dr. Doug House, EMT, Ed Cramden, Ralph Norton, Fire Marshal Bill Laflamme, and Surplus Armory. Single-sided. Again, what you may have noticed, and certainly I noticed this immediately, is the little nods to pop culture. Ed Cramden and Ralph Norton may be lost on some of younger people, but that would be the Honeymooners, two of the characters from the Honeymooners. Dr. House, that's another reference. Mayberry was the location of Andy Griffith's show. Then you've got Coach Sid Calhoun, Miguel Spitz, little Michael Phelps, Mark Spitz reference there maybe, Marsha and Jan Brady, Phil Tiger King, Johnny Deere. So I think you can probably suss out the little hidden nods in here. That was the Islanders Athletic Club. These are the horror mutations, birds of prey, infected Sasquatch, leper messiahs. Nice David Bowie nod there. Most wanted, murder hornets, wild-eyed rats. Here we have the Plum Island Constabulary, Chief Lee Hartman, Commander Arnie Stallion, Francis Drebin, Frank Drebin, Police Squad. Chase, Officer Joseph Friday, or Joe Friday maybe, from Dragnet. Paddy Wagon. So there are a lot of little nods in here. I love this stuff. Martha, Mrs. Wonderful Winfrey. This is the PIRL Security Services, the Pearls. Dr. Ray Wenkman. Could be a Ghostbusters reference there. Dr. Leo Bones Corey. Dr. Irwin McCoy. And Kevin Blart, security guard, Compound W. I think you can, again, I'm not going to point all of these out because a lot of them are pretty somewhat evident and very, very, very amusing. Colonel Jess Parmenter, this is the National Guard. We've got Sergeant Forrest O'Rourke, Corporal Larry Agarn. Now that's an older reference as well from F Troop, which was a show I watched a lot as a kid in reruns, but it was very amusing. Homer Pyle, like Gomer Pyle, Private Mac Reacher, Military Police. That one's a little bit more contemporary of a reference, I would say. NPC units, Shore Patrol, Wolverines, Hero of the Day, etc. Then we've got the Neighborhood Watch, Biff Rogers, Sergeant Rock York, Jason Kruger, Gordon Fletty, I think that's what that says, and Ellie Mae Bobby, and then Fort Courage is their compound. So that's that. Then we've got one of the player aids here. So this would be our turn track, obviously. Hitch charts, biohazard cubes of various types. So this is hit cubes, tracks, etc. VIP civilians. Again, you've got various various things on here. Quick reference. Here's your sequence of play, your damage resolution, ranged and close, repair tables, overrun point table, counters. So we've got front and back here. These would be the compounds. Supplies, damage markers, exhausted locations, Texas Navy. Murder of Horror counters. Here are some of the standees for the various characters. They're also two-sided, of course, as you would expect from a standee. And we've got here some more markers and counters. Some more standees. And then more markers, I'm guessing. And then here's our map. So let's take a look at the map. And this, I may need to reset the shot, but let's open it up and see what it looks like here. Yes, so this is fairly large. So what I might do is just move it around. So this would be the upper right, or lower right rather, if you turn it 90 degrees clockwise. But you can see that some of this is written in facing this way. So we have beach, and then you have various areas. Here's a baseball diamond, the Pearl Corporation headquarters, the winery, etc. So areas, obviously. So this isn't like a hex map; it's an area map. And graphics. Sorry, graphics was Terry Leeds. Ken Kuhn was the developer. I totally screwed that up, so apologies. Terry Leeds did the art, and the art is really, really cool in this game, in my opinion. I should have known. I know Ken Kuhn is a developer. But anyway, mistake on my part. So you can see here's the other top half of the map. Here we have various tracks at the top. And here is a bridge. That is the Great South Bay Bridge, which I believe at the beginning of the game is out and you cannot use it. And then there are also bridges on the island as well, I believe. Somewhere, I think, if I remember correctly. And then if we scroll a little further down, this is the bottom edge here, or the left side. More beach, barbecue, etc. Some more areas, basically. So, like I said, I will do a good job of showing the entire map when I do the playthrough, and actually as part of the setup I will do that as well. So you will get to see more of the map here if you watch the second part of this video. Returning to the things in the box, here's our cubes. Many assorted cubes, and it looks like red, black, yellow, and green. And we've got a couple of cloth bags for drawing things out. This is a nice touch. One of them is just pretty much blank, but this one's got a biohazard symbol on it, so that's pretty cool. Got standee bases here. Bag of bags. And then we've got our custom dice with various symbols on them, including some blank sides, it looks like. Then we've got decks of various cards here. So I will get these out too as part of part 2 of this. When we show setup. But you've got different decks here for different things. Fate cards, search cards. And this, I think, these are probably like more like reference cards, but underneath is going to be something else. Okay, so yes, we have some basically 4 cards that are kind of action cards for the 4 different players, and then the event card deck. So you can look at the event cards, get a look at what they look like, or I can just flip it over. Bigfoot lives. These are spawning. These are spawning your mutations, I guess. We've got Bigfoot, Birds of Prey, the Leper Messiahs, Diseased, Jailbreak, so etc. So I mean, obviously you will shuffle these. This is card 1, and there are 44 of these apparently. And then we also have fate cards and search cards, and we'll get into the mechanics and what each deck does and everything during setup, and obviously when we do the gameplay video. So now I'm going to take a pause here, and we're going to set up to do the set up to do the setup, which is sounds weird, but that is basically what I'm going to do. I'm going to reset everything, put the map out, reset the shot, etc., so it's wider and we can see more. And then we're going to go through the setup from the rule book and just kind of walk through how you set this game up for play. Okay, for setup, you need to perform the following steps in order. This is the setup for the standard 4-player game. So number 1 is place the game board. It's actually up there, so we'll see that in a moment. Number 2, choose a faction and place units. So when you play the solo game, you're playing as 2 factions, basically. By default, you can play more if you wish, up to 4, but we'll just start with 2. So I chose the Neighborhood Watch and the National Guard. Somewhat pseudo-random, I guess I would say. Anyway, as I'm trying to manipulate this with one hand and failing miserably. So I did put some of the stuff out. So what we have to do is each faction has a group of units that are controlled by the owning player. Once decided, each player takes the following components for their faction. The faction mat, that would be these guys. The faction colored player turn activation token, that's these here. There are 2 of them for each one. That would be the National Guard, and these 2 would be the Neighborhood Watch. 1-2 supply marker. So there are supply markers in the game. This would be the 2. On the other side is 1. So you get 1 each for each of your factions, and they go on the 2 side. There are also counters that have 5 supplies on one side, and as you might surmise, 10 on the other side. Faction units, so that would be these guys, the standees. So here are some of our National Guard ones. We have Parmenter, who's the colonel and is the leader, senior officer, and then we have Agarn, who is well, that's here and here respectively. There those are. During the game, they will be standing up and not particularly visible. They'll look like that, obviously. But I will, flip them so that you can see who they are, what we're talking about while we're playing, just to kind of keep track of it, because standees typically don't work very well with this overhead type of shot that I tend to use when I'm doing videos, because I want to see the board from the top down, basically. So we have a leader, and again, that would be Parmenter and Rogers, and then we also get a compound for each. So you can see the compounds are marked here, and they have a counter that they use. So that would be Fort Courage, which is the counter for the compound for the Neighborhood Watch, and then you have Strong Point Delta, which is the compound for the National Guard. Okay, resuming our setup, we're on step 3 now. Add NPC units to the board. So as you can see, we've got part of the map here. This is the lower third or so, I would say, up here through that. And yeah, it's probably a little bit more than a third. It's almost half. So that's almost half the map. And I could obviously move up a little bit, because this is kind of extra area down here at the bottom. But for now, We're going to start here by adding our NPC units to the board. So there's the mat for that. And what we've got to do first is the ferry boat Cheyenne Sky, which is this one right here, is going to go on the docks right here at the Greenport docks, area 3K. And then we'll place 3 Coast Guard units as follows. The Shore Patrol, which is this guy right here. And instead of putting it on a standee, I'm just going to actually lay it on the map here in 2J, along with the Coast Guard cutter, Alyssa, which is this one right here. We'll put that there as well. And then we have the Coast Guard helicopter in 2I, which is right next door here at the beach. So you can see that. It's got a little helicopter symbol on it. So we're just going to drop that there. In there. And then we have the air medical helicopter unit is placed in Good Samaritan Hospital area. And that would be 2G. G is right here. Here's our air helicopter. Air med helicopter, rather. We'll put that there. And let's see, what else do we got? The Hero and Wolverine units do not start on the map. Place them on the NPC faction mat in their respective boxes. So I've done that. It would be just like this. Okay, we'll put that over to the side here, next to some of our other standees. I may pull the standee bases off and just lay them down on the map so that for video purposes, it would work out better that way. Obviously, if you're just playing by yourself or with other people, you may want to use the standees. They take up less space. And then, you know, they give a little bit of three-dimensional quality to it. And they're just kind of fun to have in that orientation, I think. The Texas Navy unit does not start on the map. Place it within easy reach. That's this guy. And we also have an Army Hog as well, which is a similar type of unit, I would assume. Okay, number 4, add civilian units to the board. The fine citizens of Plum Island are represented by circular civilian units. Place all of the irregular civilian units with the white background into one of the game bags, then randomly select 30 units from the bag, 1 unit at a time, and place them according to the indicated areas on the map as follows. All right, let's get this set up first, and then we'll go through and place these guys. Okay, so the civilian units look like this. This is a civilian unit, as you can see. There are 38 of them. I am going to place them in this bag, and we will draw out 30 of them to put on the map. Now, you can see here, there's a little building with a pip on it. That would indicate 1 civilian here. Hampson Shores over here has 2 pips in both locations. So that those would get 2 units. So I'm going to put all of these in the bag here. And we're going to draw out 30. And then the remaining 8 will be removed because they can come in later. So here we go. We've got, shake them up. And let's start pulling them out. So we get 1 here. We get 1 here. Okay. We are good. We have 30 on the map. So we will move on now to number 5. Place turn order tokens in the draw bag. So we're going to put 1 of the turn tokens for each faction, which would be these 2 for our 2 factions, plus 3 red fate tokens, 1 black impending doom token. These are the red fate tokens. This is the impending doom token. So these will all go in the bag. And because we want to, this is a little crooked, because we want to have 8, we will also put the other turn tokens in as well. These 2, 1 for each side. So each side, each faction will get 2 actions as opposed to 1. We'll put that in the turn order bag, which is this one, the one we just used. So we're going to put 8 in here. And that's good. And then we move on to number 6, which is placing our biohazard cubes in their draw bag, and they get to use this biohazard bag. So we're going to put 5 green cubes into the biohazard draw bag. Then we'll put the yellow and the red here in their boxes, here and here. Okay, so that is done. We've got our 14 yellow here and our 14 red here. And we will place the 5 green cubes here in our black bag. And that is step number 6. Now we move to 7, where we will shuffle the Fate, Event, and Search decks. Then we'll have to spawn our Murder of Horrors units. Okay, cards were shuffled. We have the Event deck, the Fate deck, and the Search deck. Next step is to place our horrors on their tracks, which are at the top of the board. Up here, you can see I already placed 1. They arrive in groups of 4. So we're going to put them a stack of 4 in each of the 6 tracks here, like so. Okay, next we will place the mutations on the horror mutations faction mat, and that's this guy right here. So we have obviously standees for all of those. I have not put bases on them yet. And like I said, I may not, when I get to the playthrough, I may put them on the map unless I feel like it gets too cluttered, in which case I'll put the standees on. But for now, you would just lay these out. So you'd put Most Wanted, my personal favorite, the Leper Messiahs, Wild-Eyed Rats, Sasquatch, Murder Hornets, and Birds of Prey, like so. So that they can enter the map later on, enter the game later on. Next, we place our markers on the game track sideboard. That's right here. So we have our game round, which will go here. We have a biohazard track. We have an overrun track. And we have an evac points track. So we just put these guys on there. Next up is to create our supply of hit cubes and other markers, which I have already done. So our hit cubes are just black cubes that will end up in this box, and we have them right here. There's a whole bunch of them. They are off on the side where I can get at them. The next is storm damage. Now this we'll have to roll for, so this will be the first time we'll be using any dice in our setup. Correction, as we've already seen, the game uses custom dice. So you actually use the Fate card here, which is this, to determine damage for bridges. But first, there's some stock damage that you have to place out on the map. First up is the island-wide light and power, which gets the power now counter here. We'll put that on there, as well as 3 points of damage. So this is a damage counter, and it's 2-sided, and the other side looks like this. So to get 3 points of damage, you would just put them both down like so. And we've got 3 damage points on there. Now the following areas have a damage 2 marker placed on them. Well, we have the Good Samaritan Hospital, which is right here. We'll put a 2 damage marker on there. The Old Republic Airport, which is 6E, that's over here. Gets a 2 damage marker. The Greenport docks and Coast Guard stations, they're at the bottom. So that would be, here's the Coast Guard docks are here. And the Greenport docks are here. And the other one is Oceanside Industrial Park, which is 2C. And that is actually off shot right now. It's right above here. This is 2D, so it's 1 above that. And I'm just going to put it on there, and I don't think it really matters if you see it or not. It is 2C. Basically, you've got tracks, right? Track 1, track 2, track 3, track 4, track 5, track 6, right? So here's track 1. Some places will have a big area that covers two lanes, essentially. And then you have other areas that are adjacent and kind of split it. So these are both 1. You can see we have 1G and then 1F along the beach, along with 1D and E, F and G. Then you have H and I, J, K, and then L at the bottom. And there are movement markers that allow you to move. You can also see the arrows pointing down when you can go from G to I to J to K, etc. across the board here. So now we have bridges that are randomly damaged as well. The Great South Bay Bridge, which is here, also gets a 2 damaged marker, but then you also will pull a card to see how much more damage it's going to get. So as I mentioned, we're going to use the Fate deck for this. And the bridges are marked with this symbol here. We're going to start up here so you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then that's here's 6, 7, and then 8 is here, and 9 is down at the bottom, so we'll have to redo that, and then plus the Great South Bay Bridge. All right, so we're going to draw our first card, and at the bottom is a number 3. And if we look here in the book, here's our bridge damage table. So we drew a 3, which is river flooding, and it says place 1 damage 2 marker on each of the following bridges: 1, 2, 3, 6, and 9. Okay, so we're going to get some more damaged here. So these get 2 damage. So 1, 2, 3, 6 is the big one here, and 9 is at the bottom between the Coast Guard docks and the Greenport docks, so it's off shot, but I'm going to put that one in there anyway. All right, so that's it. We've got damage to 5 bridges. The Great South Bay Bridge rather did not get any extra damage. That is number 12. So fittingly for a game titled the Plum Island Horror, the last step of the setup is step 13. Unlucky 13, I guess, which is first contact. So here you have from the book, here in the book, we have 13, first contact. I won't read it to you, but basically we have to determine where first contact occurs. So the Murder of Horror stacks will move forward until contact with a player unit, okay, or civilian unit is made. So something I forgot to do at the beginning, apparently, is at start, it tells you where each character is, and I didn't do that. So Bill Rogers, for example, for our neighborhood watch, he's at Plum Island High School. Sergeant Rock York is at the VFW Memorial Park. Jason Kruger is either at the John's Hunting Lodge, 6B, or any forest area. And then Gordon Fladdle or Fleddy and Ellie Mae Bobby get kind of to choose where they want to be, as well as that one. The military ones enter during the game. So they enter 1 unit per game round during the crisis adrenaline move phase. And entry counts as the entering unit's crisis adrenaline move. So we'll do that in a moment. I'm going to put the neighborhood watch out first, and then we'll worry about entering the National Guard once we actually get into the game. So in reading the rest of the first contact rule, I think what I'm going to do is we'll resolve that as part of the gameplay video, which will be coming as the next video on this game anyway, within the next few days. It's not going to be a long time. But what that will involve is just basically moving horrors down the tracks. Again, you have track 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The horrors are at the top. We'll draw fate cards here like this one, which has an activate section, and you can see track 3. So the first thing we would do is move the horrors in track 3 down, and so on and so forth until they come into contact with a civilian unit or one of the player units. So I'm going to do that as the first thing we do in the gameplay video. So that's going to wrap this one up. I do appreciate you guys watching. As always, please consider liking, sharing, and or subscribing. If you are a subscriber or have liked previously, I do appreciate that. Thank you very much. But that's going to do it for now. So look for the gameplay video coming up in the not too distant future. My name is Joe. This has been Hexed Encountered. And until next time, as always, happy gaming.